हाँ, क्लिक मैंने कर दिया। योर लाइफ दिखा दिया। दिख रहा है अभी? या इट इज लाइफ। फाइनली। हेलो। हेलो। Right. Hello, delegates. So, first of all, I'd like to start by apologizing for making you wait so long. It was a technical error which I've been working along with your secretary channel. So that was quite a hassle. So, which was the reason why we were late. Now, anyway, so before instead of wasting any more time, I'll just start get on with the committee. So, first of all, like a little insight about UNSC as a committee, right? So UNSC is a committee which is focused on defense, right? And it is a committee where like all the actions are taken, all the actions take place, right? It's not like any other committees which, like for example, the General Assembly or generally the parts of the General Assembly which provide kind of suggestions to the Global Forum for certain topics for certain topics. But in UNSC, what we do is we actually deliberate on that issue and we come up with a solution and we actually adopt something which is basically in favor of all. Which is why the most important thing about UNSC is your diplomacy. Without diplomacy, you will not be able to like for example, you cannot just like abuse a person and then ask him to comply with you, right? So for that, you have to be cooperative with him. Like you have to understand his needs, what he can do and what he cannot do, and then you have to kind of come at a conclusion where you both can agree and put forward something. So in terms of ambience or in terms of diplomacy, what we generally refer to this like, for example, person A wants one and two, and person B wants two and three. Then you nullify one and three, and you focus on two, which provides you with a ground basically to work something upon. Right? You can build on something. Now I'll first. So is that clear for everyone as of now? Like, just a second. Okay, so after that, we'll focus on the ROP, right? So now, when we talk about ROP, we basically mean the rules of procedure. Now, when we talk about rules of procedure for the UNSC committee, right? We generally focus on ROPs like the provisional set of provisional rules of procedure for UNSC, and we have the UN for MUN rules of procedure. Like the provisional ROP is something which is used in the actual forum of the UNSC, and when I talk about this one, UN for MUN, that is basically something UN has provided us with to work on as a, like to provide to make it as a ROP for our purpose. Now moving on, since like taking into account that we are just as we are taking like we are representing, or we are uh, kind of emulating the committee in a school, I'll be fine with having this committee held in UNASC rules of procedure. So I'll now go forward and explain to you the UNA USA rules of procedure, like what I'm looking forward to and what are the things that you have to keep in mind while following that procedure. So first of all, we start with something called the roll call. Now, roll call, as everyone obviously knows what it is basically me being the president of your committee. I'll be calling out your your specific country names, and you are to either answer in a present or voting, present and voting. So these are your two options: present or present and voting. Now, understand something. The significance of present and voting I'll be explaining in a short while. But firstly, I'll just talk about what when you actually vote for this. So present and voting, right? These two voting you cannot. So when you are, say, suppose on the first day of the committee you say present, right? Now, if the next day, like I'll have that written, of course, that if you're, so let's say if you're Afghanistan and you have opted for present in the first day, I'll be writing it down. Now, on the second day of the committee, I'll be again going through the list of the countries, and I'll be calling out the names. Now, Afghanistan at that point of time can, or second or in the third day, you can probably move from present to present and voting. Like basically, what I'm saying is that if on the first day you say present, you can say present and voting in the next day or the day after, whatever. But once you have opted for present and you cannot go back to present. Keep that in mind, because this is something very important, and which is a mistake that a lot of students make, a lot of delegates make, for example, to put things into context. So after that, I'll talk about the significance of present and voting, right? So if you say present, it gives you three options. Of course, so this is a roll call, it does not fall under voting. When I talk about voting, I'm talking not talking about procedural voting. I'm talking about the draft resolution voting. If at that point of time, if during the draft resolution voting, and you have previously opted present, in that case you have three options. That is, you can either vote yes, no, or you can say abstain. Now, abstain means you're neither for nor against the particular document that is at hand. You have two other options, which is yes with rights and no with rights. In yes with rights, you have to provide you'll be given like 30 seconds of time, so that you can explain why you have opted for yes with rights. Now, generally, I also specify this because I'm assuming that this is the first time of committee mostly. So yes with rights only come to play, like you only say yes with rights if you have taken a major like deviation from your policy. For example, you had put up a resolution, and for some reason you have opted against it. This some reason you'll have the time to explain during that 30 minutes of time. Keep that in mind. Same goes with no with rights, right? So that is why you have to, there is again, sir, no with right means you'll have to explain why you have opted no, right? So that is something you have to remember. Now, moving on with the procedures. So when you vote for present, you have this extra option, which is called abstain. So we are neither for nor against the topic. Now, abstain is generally used by delegates as a delegate is generally used by the delegates as a like a diplomatic tool, right? Because, like, for example, uh, USA on topics such as for example, let's say India versus Pakistan. Indo-Pak. Like in such areas, US will, if there is a paperwork of some sort. I'm just giving an example here. If there's a paperwork of some sort, USA will always opt for abstain. So they basically abstaining falls under certain diplomatic relations. It's basically all got to do with diplomacy. So you have got to use your abstain option correctly, and you have to be careful about it, because if you are not a country who generally abstains from voting in a certain situation, then it will result in loss of marks, right? So keep that in mind, because it shows a major political standing or diplomatic standing in the committee. Now, so we have already spoken about voting. I hope voting is clear. If not, you can always ask. uh, a delegate has asked me, does our marks gets deducted by abstaining? Well, see, this is exactly what I'm saying. If it's your policy to abstain, then of course it will be a boom for you. Like I'll not deduct marks for you for abstaining. Of course not. But it should be in line with your country's policy. That must be there. And I'll be explaining my criteria after I have explained the rules of procedure. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, so moving on. After the roll call, you have to open the debate. So the verbatim goes, motion to open debate. Keep these verbatims in mind. Possibly you will note this down, or you can check again this video later. But I need this exact verbatim. So once you have motion to open debate must be an unanimous decision. So if it's a it's unanimous, it can be only adopted unanimously. That is what I'm saying basically. Once done, we are in debate. We have actually convened our session. After that, if you have only one agenda, then it gets set automatically. You don't have to again raise a motion to set an agenda. But since in this case you have two agendas at hand, so you have to set any one of the agendas. So basically the motion goes. Achha, so unanimously means basically you have to have the entire committee's yes for that. Like basically all the delegates present in the committee should unanimously vote yes. Unanimously means as one, unanimously. So I hope it's understood. Now after that, where was I? Yeah. So the verbatim for after motion to open debate is that you have to set the agenda. So the verbatim goes, motion to set the agenda to this. So either you state full of topic one, or you state full of topic two accordingly, whatever you have decided. Now something of importance as of now is that I'll be taking the quorum for the quorum. So quorum is basically the minimum number of delegates required to start a session, right? So the quorum must be. Oh, all right, okay. Right. So as I was saying, quorum is basically the minimum number of delegates that are required to start the committee, right? So I'll be setting the quorum to 1/3. So whatever the total number of delegates is, 1/3 of that will be the quorum. So 1/3 or 2/3. Let's say it's 2/3. So if 2/3 of the delegates, okay, yeah, makes sense. So if 2/3 of the delegates are present, I'll be starting off with the committee. Now there is something called the majority. So the majority of the committee is always set as per rules and regulations as 50% plus one. So if there is so in order to get a vote passed, in order to get a like whatever, let's say if you have proposed a motion regarding some topic, you have to have the consent of 50% plus one delegates, and that is when the motion gets adopted. Now, having said that, as I was saying, so the verbatim for setting the agenda I've already stated. So let's say there is a group of delegates who want the first agenda to be set, and there's a group of delegates who wants the second agenda to be set. In that case, this comes in the majority concept comes in. So you have to have 50%. So whichever group has 50% plus one, that group's agenda will be adopted. Now once the agenda gets adopted, now we are in formal session. Now, formal session, as you know, will have a lot of deliberations, and now I'll be starting off with the main concept debate. So, first concept we'll talk about is the GSL, as we say, General Speakers List. Now, general speakers list is the basic list of speakers who will be speaking or deliberating upon the topic, and the GSL is something which cannot end throughout the duration of the debate. Like for the 3 days, you cannot have the GSL ended, because if the GSL ends, the session is adjourned, and then like the committee gets adjourned for that matter, right? So the session cannot end before 3 days, right? So you cannot end the GSL as well. GSL must go on, and the GSL is basically the platform where you basically put forward your country's stance. Like you give a rough idea about your country's position on a particular topic. Now, one more thing that I'm going to do here is that I'll be taking in on the first day of the committee. I'll be accepting position papers. Now, what is a position paper? Position paper is basically like a GSL, but in not a very not a very deliberated manner. In position paper, you basically write your country's position on the two agendas separately, and then you provide that information to the executive board. That is, I'll be there and along with your vice chair. So you'll be submitting that to us, and that will again be marked as well. So the reason why I am accepting position papers is because you people, I want to see like how good an understanding you have of your foreign policy. And as you can understand, foreign policy makes a lot of difference in the committee. It's not just jargons. It's not just the like whatever. It's not your knowledge that matters the most here. Okay, keep that in mind. You have to have your diplomacy at peak. Now, moving on. Once you have, so again, to set the GSL, you have to again come up with a motion which is called motion to establish GSL. I'll be now the so I'll be asking that delegates are there any points on the floor, and again, are there any motions on the floor? I'll be explaining points and motions as well. So motions is in the process of explaining, and I'll be coming to points later. So when I'm talking about motions, right? So when I say, or when the executive board says the floor is now open for motions, that is when we'll be asking this from time to time, so no need to worry about that. And I don't want chits for in that case regarding when we'll be asked to when we'll be asked to give out motions. So, no chits of that sort. Now, the executive board, it's the duty of the executive board to ask for motions from time to time. When we do, you have to have these motions in line. So first, for example, recapitulating a bit, first you come up with the motion to open debate, then you say motion to establish GSL, motion to establish agenda, and then you come to motion to establish GSL. Now the discussion upon who the executive board chooses to put forward the motion, it's our discretion, as I said. It's upon us. So you cannot so we will always keep in mind who the delegates who have not been speaking that much, and we'll have a tab of that, so you don't need to worry about missing out. And in UNSC we don't have a lot of delegates so that is the reason why we generally don't face such a problem. We always have like plenty of speaking time for all the delegates, so don't need to worry about that. But as I said, you have to keep on speaking, and you have to keep on like deliberating, because that's what the UNSC stands for. So when I asked for a motion to motion to establish GSL, any one of the delegate might stand up and exactly say this in this way, in this manner: motion to establish GSL for a individual speaker's time of 30 seconds or whatever. So right. So one more thing. Sorry. When you are talking about GSL, right? When you are setting the motion for establishing GSL, you must have. So what is my? Acha, I'll answer your questions later. Okay, at a later point of time. So firstly, uh, wait, what was I talking about? Yeah, establishing GSL. So when you are establishing GSL, you have to specify the time period. Now the default time period is always set at 90 seconds. So you can either have it for 60 seconds or 120 seconds. So it's your choice basically. Now, if you do not state the per speaker's time while put forwarding the motion regarding establishing GSL, I will take it automatically to be the default time, which is 90 seconds. Now, if you wish to extend or deduct the speaking time period, you can do so by a separate motion. Now, the motion in that case, if you want to deduct or if you want to increase the time period, it will go like something like this: motion to increase the GSL per speaker time of GSL by 30 minutes to 60. So those are your options. Now after that, moderated caucus and an unmoderated caucus. Now GSL is always the formal debate, right? And moderated caucus is basically something. So I'll explain moderated caucus, but moderated caucus is basically a subdivision of GSL. It's something called a uh, so after GSL, so in GSL, what as I told you earlier, that in GSL you have to have like you have to basically portray your country's position on a certain topic. That is how GSL goes. So you have to like deliberate issues. You can do whatever you want. Like in GSL, you have to, like you can explain anything that you want to. So that is why it's called a general speakers list. You can talk about anything that you think or that your country thinks is relevant to the topic, and you want the international forum to have an insight upon that, or at least to know that. So that is what I'm saying. So that is GSL. Now, when you talk about moderated caucuses, so moderated caucus basically in moderated caucus it must be it's always like a subdivision of the GSL. So basically, let's take for example, you're talking about nuclear deals. You're talking about nuclear arms in the world, right? And that if that is the agenda, right? The nuclear armament is the agenda. Then Iran's nuclear deal is a sub agenda. So I hope you get me. So for example, you have like talking in terms of the agenda, right? Agenda you have. So for example, if you've chosen the agenda to be Syria, right? In that case, Damascus will be a subtopic, or whatever you think. What any parameter which comes under the given problem is a moderated caucus topic. So in moderated caucus, what you do is that you divide the agenda into different parts, and you deliberate upon these parts separately, right? So that puts more focus on the agenda, that puts more like more grounds to deliberate upon, as I said earlier. So that is the idea for moderated caucus. Now the verbatim for moderated, proposing a moderated caucus goes something like this. So it says motion to motion to provide a, or motion to um, yeah. So you go something like this: motion to let's say 20 minutes, per speaker time being 60 seconds for on the topic this. So now you have to of course come up with a topic that is a sub part of the end of the agenda at hand, and you have to propose it like this: motion to motion to put forward a moderated caucus for the per speaker time being uh, 60 seconds on the topic this. So that is how you put forward a motion regarding moderated caucus. Now, some things to be noticed regarding this is that the mandatory things which must be present while proposing a moderated caucus are the per speaker's time, firstly, and then it must be and there must be the total moderated caucus time period. So total time 20 minutes, and then per speaker's time can be 60 seconds. Now, also understand something, that when you are proposing a moderated caucus time period, right, the time period must be exactly divisible by the per speaker time. So, for example, as I gave you the example here, 20 minutes is exactly divided by 60 seconds, so 1 minute. So basically, you have 1 minute for 20 speakers. Understood? So that is how you go forward. So you can, if your total speakers time is 20 minutes, you cannot put forward like a per speaker time being 90 seconds. You cannot do that. So you have to have that in mind. Now, moving forward, you have yeah. So that is how moderate caucus work. So in moderate caucus, so basically summing up what I told you, like up till now, is basically regarding moderated caucus. Of course, is that it is a subpart, is such a sub of the main agenda at hand, and while proposing a moderated caucus, you must have the per speaker time mentioned, and you must have the total time period mentioned. These are the two requisites of proposing a moderated caucus. Now, moderated caucus is as you can understand from the from the name, moderated itself is basically is a formal session. So I will be, or the chairperson will always be moderating that particular session. Like we will be actively participating, not intervening in the materialistic way, but of course in the proceedings of it. Like I'll be asking for countries who wish to put forward their names in the moderated caucus, and those who wish to remove their names if they want to, right? So that is something, that is how we will be intervening. So it's not basically intervening, but it's basically moderating the particular debate session. Now, Once we have elapsed the time period of 20 minutes, right? After that, once the last speaker of the moderated caucus has spoken, I will be asking for a motion. Now I need this to be perfectly understood, that when I ask when the executive board asks for a motion right after the moderated caucus has ended, it's always pertaining to the extension of the moderated caucus. So if and only if you only if you wish to extend the time period of the moderated caucus, let's say from 20 minutes you want 10 minutes more, only in that situation can you come up with a motion at that point of time. So you say motion to extend the current moderated caucus by a time period of, let's say, 10 minutes. That is how you do. Now again, this has something because that we have just elapsed the time period of was of, let's say, 20 minutes. You cannot have extension time of 10 minutes. Is set at a maximum of half of the previous session. That is all. Like, you cannot have it for 15 minutes, you cannot have it for again 20 minutes, but you'll only have the time period of extending the session by 10 minutes. Now, if you have 10 minutes, you can take it, of course, for 5 minutes. But then again, you also have to remember that the total time period for the extension must be divisible by the per speaker's time. You also have the provision to extend the time periods of moderated caucuses as per the last one, as I've said regarding the GSL, and it goes on. You can do that for moderated debates. But if you have the per speaker's time for, let's say, 120 seconds in the moderated caucus, the original one, then for the extended time period, you cannot reduce or increase that. Of course, you cannot increase that more than 120 seconds, but you cannot decrease it either. Seconds in case the previous one was for 120 seconds. But let's say if the previous one was for, say, 90 seconds, then again you'll have to have it this for 90 seconds. But the original moderated caucus, you can obviously you have the provision to extend uh, or deduct the time period of that moderated caucus via a motion. As I have said earlier, you already know what will be the verbatim of the particular motion of extension or motion of deduction of time. Anyway, so I think I hope moderated caucus is clear. Now after that we come to something called the unmoderated caucus. So unmoderated caucus, as you can understand from the terminology itself, is something which is not moderated by the executive board. So we will not be intervening during a moderated caucus, not even procedurally. We'll not even like intervene. We'll not ask for names. We'll not see what you are doing. Of course, like we'll keep an eye on you, of course, because at the end of the day, it's an competition, and you all are aiming for awards. So we will, of course, we'll always keep an eye on what people are doing, but then we'll not intervene. We'll not ask you what to do. Right? We'll not even ask what you are doing. You have to explain yourself to us at only during the time period of the unmoderated caucus. Now, in unmoderated caucus, what you basically do is you basically form lobbies, you form groups. Like, when I say groups, I mean the country blocks. For example, you have the ASEAN countries, you have the Middle East countries. For you have the you can have OIC countries, you can have GCC countries. So these are all the country blocks that are present all around the world. Now, you can assort yourselves among that, and you can choose to deliberate on the given operations or given agendas together as a form of a block, right? So it's all up to you. You have a lot of flexibility in this particular ROP, but then use it judiciously, right? You cannot just fool around during the unmoderated caucus session and expect us to be fine with it. Of course, it will materially affect your marking sheet. But remember this, that unmoderated caucus, although it sounds trivial, it is of great importance, and all the major decisions or all the major paperwork have always come off this on informal sessions, because informal session is the time that you actually should be looking forward to in a United Nations conference. Like, not just the MUN, but even in the in the UN platform, in the original UN platform. So in that case, you have to always remember to use your informal sessions correctly. Move about from delegate to delegate, understand what they want from you. If you are experienced a little bit more than your fellow delegates, reach out to them, explain to them how things are done. So there's no problem in explaining things. So they will not acquire they will not suddenly acquire your technical abilities and then be sweep away the war. So it doesn't work that way. I have been in that situation as well, and I have helped my fellow delegates who, and I have won the committee as well as their hearts. So that should be your main focus. And as I've said earlier, UNSC is a deliberation based committee, so you have to be cordial with all your fellow delegates, because at the end of the day, your country has to have their consent in doing something. You cannot, like as I said earlier, if you have to get something done, you have to respect what the others need as well. So it's always a two-way road. You cannot have one way. Like, you cannot have it one way. You cannot have it your way only. You have to think about your fellow delegates as well, and that is how you form a, like, a cooperation between all the countries, so that you can work forward something materialistic, right? Yeah, so that you are at least productive, example. So that now the way you motion to establish an unmoderated caucus for the time period of, let's say, 30 minutes. Now the maximum time period from unmoderated caucus and moderated caucus is 30 minutes. You cannot have an unmoderated caucus for 40 minutes or even 31 minutes. You have to have it for 30 minutes. Now, something that differentiates unmoderated caucus, like, from the moderated caucus, apart from us intervening and not intervening, or what you're supposed to do in the committee, is that in moderated caucus you have to specify the per speaker's time. There's nothing of that sort in unmoderated caucus. Moderated caucus, you do have to specify the per speaker's times, like, as I've told you earlier, either 60 seconds, 90 seconds, or 120 seconds. But in case of unmoderated caucus, you don't have to specify per speaker's time, simply because there is no personal speaking involved. What you're doing is basically you are deliberating, you're lobbying. Now, lobbying is something which plays a major role in an MUN conference or in a United Nations conference as well. Now, moving on from that. So now like to talk about something called the points. So the technical areas of this procedure, rules of procedure. So the points of inform. So there are 5 points, right? In an United Nations conference under the USA rules of procedure, you have 5 points. So it goes point of information, point of personal privilege, point of order. You have point of information, order, point of personal privilege, and you have point parliamentary inquiry. So these are the 4 points, not five, 4 points you have. Now I'll explain to you what these points individually mean. So first, starting off with point of personal privilege. Point of personal privilege is something which you are only used in case you are hot, wet, itchy, cold. Not that is basically compromising your ability to conference, is a personal privilege issue. So let's say you want a fan to be turned off. You want a particular delegate to repeat himself. In that case, or a particular delegate is not audible to you. In that case, you raise a point of personal privilege. That is the only area or only reason why you are allowed to raise a point of personal privilege. In case you need to go to the loo, you don't have to raise a point of privilege. You can do that yourself anyway, because of course at the end of the day, this is not a school session, this is an immune session where you are delegates. So you don't have to ask permissions for that, nor raise point of personal privilege for that, right? So I hope her point of personal privilege is clear. Now, after that, I'm going to talk about point of parliamentary inquiry. So, what is parliamentary inquiry? Now, in case you have any question, now point of parliamentary inquiry is always directed towards the executive board. Point of parliamentary inquiry is only to be availed if you don't understand anything regarding the procedure that we are following. So let's say you don't know what comes after what comes after setting the agenda. It should not be the case because I've already explained, but let's say it happens in some case. So if that happens, then only you're allowed to ask point of parliamentary inquiry or any other procedural clarifications that you might want, anything of that sort. Or you let's say I'm explaining to you, right, as I'm explaining to you the rules of procedure right now, right? So suppose I was doing a speech and you asked for a point of parliamentary inquiry, and you could have asked what we're going to do next, or what is being done, anything of that sort. Any question regarding the procedure that we are following is a point of parliamentary inquiry. Now, after that, we come to point of order. Now, point of order is something very important. Okay, keep listen to this very carefully. A lot of delegates or a lot of chairpersons what they do is that they talk about point of order as a factual error. Point of order is never a factual error, right? Point of order is only to be availed in case of a in case of a mistake or a wrongdoing on the part of the executive board pertaining to the rules of procedure. So let's say, for example, yeah. So let's say, for example, after establishing the voting, like after opening the debate, I jump to establishing GSL. That is the executive board after opening the debate jumps to setting the GSL. That is a factual. That is a procedural error. And only in that case you're allowed to raise a point of order, right? So that in that case you will just you'll show your placard and you'll say that point of order. And in that case I'll ask you what if I do choose to ask you, right? Because again, that is the discretion of the chair whether I will be accepting your point of order or not. Now, if of course I will do that, if I do, then you'll tell me that Mr. The chairperson, you have skipped the part where you set the agenda. So that is the point. So I'll be proceeding with that. I'll rectify my errors basically. Now, considering so that is the idea of point of order. But considering that this is a competitive based committee and you're all competing again, so I will be keeping factual errors in hand, but like factual errors to be considered in this committee. But there's also there are two types of factual errors, right? So, for example, a delegate says that I believe Kolkata is the capital of India. Now, stress upon the word believe. So you, as a delegate of a country, is allowed to believe anything and everything you want, right? You can believe that Narendra Modi is a press is a press consultant. You can believe anything you want, but so that is not a fact, right? When you believe something, when you say that you believe something, it's not a fact. So you are not to raise a point of order regarding that, even if a delegate says something bizarre, right? But let's say the delegate says that uh, yeah, Kolkata is the capital of uh, India. In that case, it counts as a factual error, right? So that is how you're supposed to do that. Take care of factual errors. Now, whenever this kind of a factual error occurs, like regarding on the part of a delegate, you are not to raise your placard and say that point of order. Those point of orders will only be entertained through chits. Those chits can be sent either via the executive board or directly to that person. Now, it's always recommended that you send the chits directly to that person because uh, it's not something I assent to a lot regarding this type of factual errors. So unless and until it's very something very crucial or something game changing for a delegate, only then you will be marked materially upon that. So in any other case, it's not that much of a big deal. So which is why I'll not be focusing a lot on factual errors of this sort. Yeah. So that is all I have to say about point of order. Now the last one is point of information. Now, in case of point of information, so I'll first tell you where you can exercise point of information. For example, a delegate, after finishing his GSL speech, let's say the GSL speech was for 90 seconds, and the delegate finishes his speech in 60 seconds. In that case, he has 30 minutes to spare. Now, here comes the concept of yielding. So the delegate can either yield to the chair, can either yield to a fellow delegate. What I mean is basically you the so let's say 30 seconds are left, right? Now in 30 seconds I'll be selecting it's again the number of delegates I'll be selecting to ask the questions is the discretion of the chairperson. So I can select 5 students, I can select 10 students, I can select a particular delegate is delegate yields to points of information. I'll be selecting the delegates who will be asking the questions, and accordingly, you are allowed one question only. It must be a well phrased question. It should not go on for. It should not. You should not make a speech before asking a question. But I need the particular question, or that's all. A one line question. That's all you get. Yeah, and there's no cross questioning of any sort. If the executive board feels that it is crucial to have a cross questioning session held after one question has been asked in a point of information, only then it will be allowed, otherwise not. So that ends points of information, right? That ends points of information. Now what it means is that you, the chair, basically, the executive board convenes the committee, right? The executive board takes care of the procedure of the committee. Now, when you put forward a motion and when we appoint speakers, we give some of the floor time to that delegate to speak about the whatever that delegate has to speak about, right? Now, when you say that yield to the chair, you basically reallot that time which was allotted to you earlier back to the chairperson or back to the floor. So we will try not to ask you any question on the part of the executive board. So basically, what yielding to the chair means is that you can finish off your question, you can finish off your speech in 30 seconds and just sit down. But if we do, if you have some, if you have said something very bizarre, we might want a clarification. Then, if you yield to the chair, we can ask for a clarification on behalf of the chair, on behalf of the executive board. But I don't think I'll be intervening too much in the course of the debate. I'll let you people uh, like take care of the proceedings of the debate afterward. So yeah, that finishes point yield to the chair. Now, when we talk about yield to another delegate, it means that you are yielding some of your time to a fellow delegate. Now, the procedure for doing this, and this must be followed at all times, is that if you choose to, let's say you are the delegate of Afghanistan, and you want to uh, like give some of your time, so let's say you finish 30 seconds before your permitted time, then you can allot that particular 30 seconds to your fellow delegate, let's say Pakistan. So, but before doing that, I want a signed chit from both the countries that yes, I'm going to issue this particular time period to Pakistan, and Pakistan must say that yes, I accept to have like allotted this time from the delegate of Afghanistan. If and only if you have this particular chit paper of this document presented to the executive board before you actually yield your time to another delegate, only in that case will I be accepting that particular order to take place in my committee. Now, so this is basically done so that you do not. So the reason why I want this documentation, the signing of papers, is because I don't want a particular delegate to take advantage of another delegate by taking him off guard. Right? You cannot just ask anyone. Probably you know that he's a bit shy regarding speaking and all. Although it doesn't happen, or it should not happen in my committee. I'll make sure of that on the first day of the committee. But in case one is, I don't want another delegate to exploit that person. So you cannot take someone by surprise and just allowed him 30 seconds or more to, so that he cannot speak on that particular agenda and he loses out marks. So I'm not going to let that happen in my committee. So I want, if and only if it has to be this way, that must be a strategic decision, and only at the present, only in possession of the signed documents will I accept that something of that sort to happen in my committee. Now, having said that, I think I have explained all the three yields. Now, understand something regarding the yields. Yielding of time can only take place during a GSL. If, say, suppose you are in a moderated caucus and you finish 20 seconds before your stipulated time, you cannot reassign someone that particular time. So basically, you cannot yield time when you are in a moderated caucus. But if you're in a GSL, if you're in a GSL and you speak and you finish sometime earlier, you have the option uh, to basically give someone that time period. So we have spoken about yields, we have spoken about points. So now the paperwork is something I don't want to go into today. The sole reason being I don't even know whether I'll be accepting a paperwork. So the concept of paperwork is that, so I'll tell you something. Okay, when you are talking about MUNs, right? A lot of a lot of people or a lot of delegates think that paperwork is the ultimate decider or the game changer, which basically decides whether I can get an award or not. It's absolutely not such a case. Let me just clear this out. Paperwork is not the most important thing. You can have a committee for no paperwork also, I don't mind that. All that matters is the level of debate or the level of deliberations or the level of interaction that happens in my committee. I want that. Now, if you do have enough deliberations, and you do have you have covered a lot of topics regarding that agenda, then and only then will I be accepting a paperwork or a final document. Now, documents, final document can be in a lot of forms, right? We have press release, we have this draft resolution, and we have a position paper, which now this position paper is basically the position paper as a whole, right? So we call it something. So let's just stick with press release and draft resolution. We don't need committee report, right? So what I was basically talking about was committee report. So you have three things: you have committee report, you have press release, and you have draft resolution. Now, this is my opinion, right? Since we are looking forward to some sort of paperwork at the end of the day, you are like, it's a recommendation on the part of the executive board that you don't go into JNK. Because I'll tell you why. Because the Security Council, as of now, has been very secretive about JNK issue, right? The reason being, Pakistan wants this to be spoken about in the global forum, but India does not. So it's a like there is a conflict of interest and all, which is why UNSC has chosen to be mum about it as of now. So you are not. So if in case you discuss JNK in the committee, right, and then you wish to propose, you wish to have some sort of a paperwork at the end of the day, or at the end of the third day of the session, like, then you cannot have any sort of paperwork because you have discussed JNK, and JNK always happens in a closed session of the UNSC, like as of now, right? So in since the Security Council always discuss JNK issues in a closed session. It will not. The closed session basically means that you cannot have any sort of paperwork, any sort of committee document at the end of the session. So that is the reason why, if you discuss JNK, you'll not have any paperwork at the end of the day. So it's a recommendation by the executive board that you don't go into JNK. You just stick to Syria and you discuss the whatever there is to be discussed regarding Syria, right? So that should be your focus. Now, since I'm talking about agendas right now, I'll just clarify one more thing, that do not like have this kind of a mentality that you will be shifting from one agenda to another. Don't keep that in mind, because I know, like, having attended over 10 Security Council and like total about 25 MUNs I've completed. So having done that, I've always like got to understand is that if you have two agendas, it's never possible to discuss both the agendas at length. It's never possible. So what I think is that, since Security Council is something of this magnitude, where deliberations is the key to the committee, right? It's better not to jump from one agenda to another. Now, again, it's always a recommendation. Like, I cannot have you do anything. Like, I cannot pressurize the committee to do anything, right? Because that is something that the presidency cannot do in a Security Council. So you always have the liberty to do that, but it's a recommendation that you don't. So if you select agenda one, you discuss only agenda one, and if you select agenda two, you discuss only agenda two. So have this lobbied among. So now this is where lobbying comes in again. See what your fellow delegates want. See what they think about it. Talk to them about how they perceive the different agendas, and if they do, try to bring them in your like in your like try to keep their opinion as per yours, so that you can adopt the agenda and, like, with the majority, and then deliver it upon that for the 3 days. Now, again, I'll specify that this is just a recommendation, that you stick to one agenda and discuss whatever there is to discuss about it, because shifting agendas is not something that you should do in an MUN, because we only hold it for 3 days, right? And it's not possible to discuss every aspect of all the agendas in 3 days. And, like, quite frankly, we don't even get that much of time. 3 days is just, so we only get, let's say, we'll have probably 6 hours of committee every day. I'm not sure about the entire timings yet, but that is the average of it. So given that time, you cannot it's not possible to cover all the agendas at length. So it's a recommendation by the EB that to stick to one agenda and discuss like that in detail. Also keep the recommendation regarding the JNK issue, because that is something, like, I have found out about it, that UNSC keeps this type of conferences secret. So if you do discuss JNK, you will not have any sort of paperwork at the end of the day. Right. So now I've discussed that agendas. I've discussed this. Um, So paperwork, that is the exact reason why I'm not going into discussing paperwork as of now, because paperwork always it's subjective. You may require paperwork or you may not require paperwork. It doesn't matter. So that is my opinion again. And in UNSCs, you generally have this kind of an opinion from the chairperson. So expect not to have any paperwork or to have a press release or committee report more than any sort of draft resolution. Anyway, so moving on now, I'll be talking about the marking criteria. So the first and foremost, the mostly the thing, the marking category that I'll be focusing on the most is your diplomacy, because in an UNSC committee, diplomacy plays the major role. Like there is nothing above diplomacy. The more diplomatic you are in your efforts, the more results you are likely to pull in a committee. So that being said, the next one will obviously be your etiquette, right? When I'm talking about etiquette, I mean your how you present yourself in a committee, right? So I'll go on and go ahead and say this, that diplomacy and etiquette kind of goes head to head, right? So there's not much of a difference. I might merge these two topics these two criteria of marking as well, but then these two will be of the like most attention to me, like, right? Because what I believe to the very core of my heart when I'm at an event session is that you have to realize the shoes you're filling, the shoes of people you're filling, right? You may be college students or you may be just like school students, but you are filling the positions of highly qualified diplomats at an international level, right? So this is something which entails a lot of respect and it entails a lot of character. So you need to fulfill that, or you need to keep that in mind when you are filling the shoes of a particular delegate, because they are highly trained professionals, right? And they are very well behaved, and they know the roles they know the role that is invested, or the responsibility that is invested in them. Like you can get away with mudslinging and like talking about what other countries are doing, or defaming a country for that matter in any other committee, like the let's say uh, the 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 GA, UNGA DISEC, for example. You can get away with saying anything in that committee. But when you're in UNSC, the permanent members and the non-permanent members given here, and as well as the observers, you cannot just go ahead and say anything you want. The sole purpose being that you, at the end of the day, you want something from that committee, be it only their vote. Want something from that country. Sorry for that. You want something from that country, so you cannot. So since you want something from it, you cannot just misbehave with that country and then ask for its cooperation. So you have to be cordial with that particular committee. Even if there is a lot of differences between the two governments, you are diplomats. You represent the government, and you try your best to tie knots, right? If not tie knots, you try to make things soothing for both the countries. So as I said, the interest theory, right? So a plus b plus c is something that person 1 wants. If person 2 wants b plus c plus d, you nullify and a altogether and you work on b plus c only, right? So even if you have a lot of differences, like in between two governments, you can join hands and work on something which will be productive for the global forum at a later point of time. A blatant example would be the Astana talks. I guess you know that because Syria is in your agenda. The Astana talks, if you know, just search it up. In Astana talks, Russia, Iran, and Turkey, they joined hands in spite of their differences, so as to deliberate on this matter, because they wanted to have a ceasefire in Syria. Now, one more example would be the Iranian nuclear deal. So Iran and USA were known to be a lot of like to have a lot of differences, but play during the Obama deal. So that is what I'm talking about. So that is all about diplomacy. And okay, so one more important thing that I'll just state right now before I forget is that understand something. When you are a delegate of a particular country, you do not represent anyone other than your government. The only person you represent is your government. This is a very well known mistake that is made in a committee which like in a committee pertaining to Syria, or regarding the Syrian delegate as the most, is that a Syrian delegate does not know who to represent. You don't represent the people of Syria. You don't represent any of the militant groups active in Syria. You only represent Bashar al-Assad. That is the government. For you, Bashar al-Assad is the legitimate government of Syria, and that is the only government, and that is the only person you represent at an international forum. Get that in your mind, and that is something you have to keep in mind. throughout the 3 days of the committee and for your upcoming MUNs as well. Right. Now, having said that, I was talking about marking criteria, right? So we are done with diplomacy and etiquette. After that, what I'll be looking forward the most is your speaking abilities, how you speak here in a committee, how you represent yourself. Like if you are too loud or if you are too boisterous in a committee, that is not a good image of you in the committee, right? So you have to be cordial, you have to keep your mind straight and deliberate upon regarding issues which you want to. So do not lose your calm at any time in a committee. Keep your calm, like have yourself well equipped with your research and all, and that is how you excel in a committee or in a committee such as UNSC. In Security Council, right. So after that, so I've talked about firstly, I've talked about diplomacy. Second is speeches. Third will be your research. I'll be focusing my attention on research after the aforementioned requisites. Research does play a part, of course. It obviously plays a major part because you need to know everything that is going on regarding your topic only, so it may be. But you have to know that. So that is how you can deliberate in the committee, and that is something you have to keep in mind. So research will be marked as well. In the third position is research, and after that, what I will be looking forward to is your chits. Now, since Security Council is generally a very small committee, it does not require chits so often. So I'll be deciding that upon seeing the strength of my committee, whether we require a lot of chits or we don't. Now, if I'm talking about chits, how we are supposed to write chits. Let's say you are writing up. So point of information, as I told you earlier, uh, can be written through chits as well. So the way you are supposed to write is that, but I'll just quickly show you once. So it's better always to understand that way. I'll just write it down and I'll show you right now. So make sure you keep that in mind, and that is the only way you're supposed to do it. Just hold on a second. Now, keep in mind that whenever, so I is this visible? Right, I think, yeah. So here if this is the place where the piece of paper that you have for your chit, then here should be two. Now two means the country that you are writing the chit to, of course, as it means, obviously. From means the country who is writing the chit. If you wish to send the chit via the EB, then you write here via EB, right? You have written via EB. After that, if it's a point of information, you have to clearly write point of information as I have written. If it's not written, then the chits get cancelled out in case the chit ends with a question mark or anything of that sort. I need to know if this is a point of information, so it has to be here. Any deviation from this particular format of writing chits will result in the cancellation of accepting the chits. I'll not accept the chits if it's not in this format. Now, any other form of chit, say let's say, uh, so this is a point of information. Any other chit that you wish to send to any other delegate without going through the EB, in that case, you can write it in any form you want. It's not our concern because we are not looking into those chits. But if the chit is going through the executive board, it has to always be in this format. It has to be in this format if it's going through the executive board. Having said that, one more sort of chat that you can have is if you are, so let's say you are late to a committee for some sort, right? Or for some reason you are late to a committee. Then, and we are already done with the roll call. In that case, you can write to the executive board saying that, please add me to the general speakers list via this chit. I'm writing it down. I'm going to write it down right now, and I'll show it to you. And the chit must be in the exact same pattern. So I'll show it to you in a bit. Right. So here you have it. So you have to first have so you have to write first to executive board, because this chit is directed towards the executive board. You write from which country it is. Then you clearly write this text, which I'm going to read out right now. That is, I hereby request the executive board to add. You don't add me to the GSL. You write your country's name to add, let's say, Afghanistan to the general speakers list. That is all you need to do. We will recognize this chat and will add your name to the general speakers list. Now understand that if your name is already there in the GSL, like even if it is right after 100 speakers, if your name is in the GSL, you cannot add your name back to the GSL, right? The only can add your name back to the GSL is either if you have missed the roll call on any other thing, or if you have uh, yeah, or if you have already spoken once in the GSL and you wish to have your name again in the GSL. Now, this chit that I showed you right now regarding addition of your country's name to the GSL, this can be also done if case you miss your voting. As I was saying earlier, I just got a deviated for a little bit. But again, so I'm going to say it right now that let's say you were not able to take your roll call because you were late to the committee for some reason. If so, you can send a chit in that exact format. Just write that I hereby request the the executive board to recognize your particular country as present or present and voting, anything that you wish. That is the exact verbatim I'll be looking forward to in that case. If not in that verbatim or if not in that format, I'll cancel the chat and I'll ask that particular delegate personally through the mic or whatever is done in the committee. So yeah, that completes the chits issue. That completes our rules of procedure. Paperwork we'll be discussing on on the third day. So it's not much of a problem. I'm looking for. So I want more the paperwork. When we're talking about paperwork again, I'm not looking forward to anything. It's not a mandatory thing to be done in a committee. It can be anything. It can be in a form of committee report. It can be in a form of press release. It can be in a form of draft resolution. I don't care. So it's not a problem. Even if you have discussed the agenda thoroughly, still you don't want a paperwork. That is also fine with me. Absolutely fine with me. But it's not a problem. It's like, since like if you do or actually deliberate upon the topic at length on the 2 days of the committee, on the first 2 days of the committee, then it's recommended that you have a press release or a committee report on it on the third day. That is all. So right, as of now, so I think we have I've explained to you all of it. We have spoken about the I've spoken to you about the agenda. I've spoken to you about the yields. I've spoken to you about the rules of procedure. I've spoken to you about the marking criteria. Now, yeah. So one question which I left unanswered a while back was that, sir, what if my country is not relevant to the agenda? Right. So this is a commonly faced question which I found. So if you have doubt, or I have my, I think on the study guide, my phone number is mentioned. So you can give me a call if you want. If you have a problem, I'll be happy to clarify whatever problem you have. So you can contact me there. In the study guide, I think my phone number is mentioned, or you can ask Sahil sir to provide you with the number, and then he will do so. Right. Now, talking about this one, that so what if my country is not relevant to the agenda? Now, understand this that this is again a type of question that I have heard a lot of times, right? So, if you are not related to some policy in that case, but you have to be absolutely sure that you have nothing to do with this agenda. You have the liberty then to form your foreign policy. When you form your foreign policy, you can go anyway. You can either go for the agenda, you can speak simply on neutral terms. For example, if you have Syria, and let's say you have some country like the Maldives or anything of that sort, which do not have any connection to any connection with any of the which do not have any connection with the given agenda, you can form your own or you can form your own policy. You can assent to what the problem is. You can be against it, or you can be neutral. When I say neutral, I mean you play a neutral stance. You talk about how things can be mended in the situation, how can possible solutions be reached. That is the way you can have yourself presented in the committee. Now, of course, if you do have a country which has no connection with the given agenda, of course this executive board will be aware of that, right? And we will mark you accordingly. So the basis of marking is very dynamic in my situation, in my committee and in UNSC in general, right? So being a very dynamic marking scheme in UNSC will of course take into account all the problems that a country can face in a UNSC, and that is how we will be marking you. So as I said, now, as I said, and I'll just clarify this once more, that UNSC does not look forward to the jargons, to committee jargons, and to what one country has done, how one has wronged the other country. These all we know. The board is well aware of what the countries are doing, and well aware of all the international norms that are being that are not being met. We know that. So there's no question of, like, there's nothing you can achieve of, like, just stating it again, right? So what you need to do is that, okay, fine, that has happened. Now how can we work upon getting back, or how can we work upon making situation better? So when I talk about Syrian civil war, you can take one day, let's say, like, you can take 1 hour or 2 hours of complete time to discuss what is going on, so just to make sure that everyone is on the same page. After that, you must go into the solution building, like, and solution does not come off right, does not come right off the bat. Like, you cannot discuss solutions on first day or the second day of the committee. So you have to wait till the third day of the committee. Now what you will do in the meantime is basically discuss parameters on which the solutions can be built. That is where lobbying comes in. That is where everything, your diplomacy comes in, and you will understand how well connected everything is, how well connected the marking scheme is, even with the given agenda, or with what you're supposed to do in a security council. Had it been a GA committee or General Assembly committee, my first and foremost, I would be looking forward to diplomacy, and then I'm looking forward to research. So nothing else matters to me at that point of time. But since it's a security council, you have to behave like a delegate of a separate security council. I know it sounds a lot, but trust me, it's not. Once you get a hang of it, you'll be pretty easy with it. And also, like, it's very easy for you, more so because we are just following UN and USA rules of procedure. Like, it had we been following UN for MUN, of course, the UN for MUN has its own perks, right? You have a wider base of discussion. So that is how UN for MUN is better. But then again, it's a little cumbersome for people who are not very, like, who are not like very often, like, who do not do MUNs very often, right? So that is why I'm going to stick with UN as rules of procedure. Now, one more thing. So I have this placard from sample placard present with me. So it says France. So you are to raise your placard like this, of course, your full hand, not just like this. You raise it to your utmost level. That is how you show your placard, and you get strive yours, and you want yourself to get recognized. Now, this is the front face. If you flip it, you can see that in this case, it has already been written personal point of personal privilege. What this generally means is that if you just flip your placard and you raise it, it basically means point of personal privilege. So I'll understand if you have your placard and you just flip it and uh, put it up. So I know that you mean point of personal privilege. That's not a problem. Now, something that the delegate does a lot, and it pisses me off a lot, is that if you raise your placard like this vertically, when you raise your placard vertically, it means that the head of state of your the head of state of your country is dead. So you are not to put your placard up like this. It's always this, and it should not, like, you should not do this in the committee at no point of time. The only reason I'm discussing all these with you is because when you are in an UNSC committee, I expect you to have some sort of decorum in the committee, and you have to follow a certain norms, like a certain set of norms that Security Council delegates do. Right? You are supposed to be the most well-behaved committee in the entire conference that is being held. So, quick pointers again. This is how you raise your full hand. This is your point of personal privilege. You raise it like this. Basically, flip the placard and you raise it like this. And if you raise it like this, it means that your head of state is dead. So refrain from doing this. Okay, it's always this, and never do this thing. You will get, if you are to get recognized. I can see every delegate from where I'll be sitting, right? So I can see every delegate from there, and you need not wave your placard to make me recognize you. Okay, if I do choose to recognize you, I'll do it anyway, and I'll have tabs. I'll keep tabs regarding which of the delegates are getting recognized, how many times they're getting recognized. So you need not worry about that at any point of time. So now, yeah. So yeah. that is all I have to say regarding the rules of procedure. I think you have, if you have any problems, you can reach me through the phone number that has been given to me, that has been given to you guys through your study guides, and yeah, I think we are about done here. If any questions are there that is put forward on the live chat, I'm open to that right now. So in general pointers regarding the MUN, or what I'm looking forward in an MUN in this Security Council, is basically you keep yourself well researched. It's okay to be a little shy on the first day of the committee. I'll what I do is that I don't, when I'm chairing committees, I do not generally mark on the first day of the committee, because I let my delegates get acquainted to the committee, and let get acquainted to myself on the first day of the committee. So I do not generally mark you on the first day, but I might. So there is no hard and fast rule regarding that. No. Okay. So yeah, thank you for reminding me that, Titli, or whatever. Anyway, so right. So you cannot have your research based from Wikipedia. The only, so thank you for that question. So I'll tell you where the sources that which will be acceptable by the UNSC platform is are, just take this down as I'm saying. So you have UN.org. You can have from Amnesty. You can have from no, not Amnesty. You can have from UN.org or Reuters only. Now, this is something very important. Okay, listen. So when you are proposing some sort of a fact, right, you have to have backup from either Reuters or UN.org. These are the two sources that are acceptable by the executive board. Now, let's say I'm Iran. Let's say I'm the delegate of Iran at this point of time. My country does accept news reports from Al Jazeera. If I put forward a motion, or if I put forward a fact based on Al Jazeera to the executive board, that is perfectly all right. But let's say USA, on the other hand, does not accept Al Jazeera. That's USA's independent decision if they will accept that report or not. In that case, USA will of course deny, saying that it has no connection with us. So any national newspaper which you believe or you don't believe is upon you. So that is again one more parameter where your foreign policy will be checked, right? Your foreign policy, you have to keep in mind that whenever you're talking about your research, you must make sure that it's authentic, and the way you make it authentic is by ensuring that it is from somewhere which is reliable. UN.org is the most reliable. After that, you have Reuters, and then you have any national newspaper that your country chooses to believe. So that is my answer to the question. And Wikipedia will not do. Of course, Wikipedia is basically, it's not acceptable by any MUN conferences. In any MUN conferences, not by any committee. So you have to have it based from somewhere authentic, somewhere where the UN ascends to, right? You can have from any UN site. I guarantee you that there are a lot of information available anywhere that you search in UN, in the UN.org site. So you need not worry about that at all. So just make sure that you make your research as like as like as tight as possible. It must be very strong. Acha, one more thing regarding foreign policy is that when I'm talking about foreign policy, you are representing your government, and you must act according to your government, right? So that is the basic idea of foreign policy. When I'm again, let's say there is something game changing going on in the committee, and at that point of time you wish to change your foreign policy with proper explanation. That is something which is very welcome, right? But of course, you cannot just get a one fine day and then you just think that, okay, I'll change my foreign policy. You cannot do that. You have to have proper backing. And if only I understand that it's actually required for that situation, you will get marked on the basis of that. So don't get carried away by what I'm saying right now. I'm not saying that it's must. It can be so. Like there is nothing, no hard and fast rule regarding foreign policy. We make it a hard and fast rule is because most delegates make mistakes while adopting it. So that is the reason why we try to keep delegates not changing their foreign policy. But you have the flexibility too, because you are again representing the committee you're representing a country on a global platform. So you have to take some on the spot decisions, and you're allowed to take so. So that won't be a problem. Right. So I have explained foreign policy. I've explained to you the sources which will be acceptable. Are there any more questions that I can answer while I'm still on this stream? If so, like you can direct it to me as of now. Um, Anything else that I can come up with right now? Mm, no, there's nothing else that I need to be explaining you to you right now. So if you have, of course, this was a one-way session. I just got a few responses through the live chat, nothing else. So that is the reason why it's not a one-to-one contact, right? So that is the reason why I'll not probably I cannot understand how you people are reacting to this thing. But anyway, that is what I've done. That like I have explained to you a lot. I've explained to you this the entire purpose of this committee. I've explained to you the procedure what that we're going to follow. I've explained to you all the parameters that the marking criteria that we'll be looking forward to. I've explained to you uh, the what we expect from the delegates again, and so that there's nothing more to explain. That is all we have to do. We have to we will have a live session and conference, right? See, the thing is that I have already explained to you the ROP in detail. And it took about so it shows me that it has been going on for 1 hour 15 minutes now. So I don't want to utilize again 1 hour 15 minutes on the first day of the committee to discuss the ROP once again. But of course, so what I'll do is that I'll not go in details and explain it again to you. But if you have problems, I'll be answering the questions then and then, and it will be easier for me as well. It will be easier for you as well because we'll be in one to one. It will be in one to one basis and face to face basis. So it will be of course be easier. It will of course be easier for us. And so that is what I'm going to do on the first day of the committee. If you do have questions on ROP, I'll be answering those questions. If not, we'll start off with the committee. We'll start off with the with our agenda or with our debate right off. So that is how I'm planning to have my committee from this 22nd of December. And I what I wish you people to do is that some pointers again. One more pointer is that what I've learned from my my seniors regarding in the MN circuit is that something a friend of mine would tell me a lot is that in an MN conference it does not matter it does not matter what you're saying. Like of course it does to some level, but what matters more than that is that you at least speak. You make yourself audible in the committee. You make yourself audible, and you basically believe in yourself. You believe in whatever you're saying. That plays the utmost role. That regarding a agenda. When you're researching an agenda, make sure you know everything about the agenda. Like make sure you know something which will help you at least to make a, let's say, a 1 minute speech. You know something on that like you know something of everything on that agenda. The contrary, like the opposite should not happen ever, that you know a small number of things, but you know that small number of things in details regarding one agenda. It's not that is something which is not desirable. No matter how researched you are regarding, let's say, one or two topics regarding the agenda, when that agenda has actually 10 topics, it does not yield anything. So make sure you, if the agenda has 10 items underneath it, you know at least something, so that you can make 1 minute speeches on all of the topics in that under that agenda. So that is what counts the most. Know something of everything, not everything of something. That is how it goes basically. So right. So anything else that I can answer while I'm here? I don't see anything else. So right, Sahil, if you're there, do I end stream right now? All right. All right. Thank you, delegates. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the 22nd, and I really wish, and I do wish we have a successful committee. So make sure you're well researched. Make sure you put in your effort. Do not just think about the awards at the end of the day, but focus on having a like fruitful debate in the committee. That's what should have your interest to the most. Like I'll tell you something. Uh, and there has been situations where I have not won an award as well, but I don't regret them because I have had a wonderful committee with my friends, and I've had a wonderful set of discussions throughout the 3 days. So it's perfectly fine to not win an award, but that should not deter you from like putting in your best efforts, right? Give in your best efforts. Make sure you have put in your best efforts into the research and all. Make sure you speak a lot in your committee. Make sure you make yourself heard, and that is the way we can have a successful committee. That is the only way we can have a successful committee, right? Awards will of course be there at the end of the day, but that should not be your only focus. Make your only focus the deliberation in the committee. That make that your primary focus. That awards will follow. So once you have your research capabilities, when your speaking capabilities, your conference managing capabilities, all right, awards will follow. So until then, make sure you're not deterred by the fact that I may not win an award. So give in your best. Make sure you are well researched, and I'll be seeing you on the 22nd of December. Thank you, delegates.